What is going on, everyone, and welcome to r/ProRevenge. Now, in today's first story, a murderer, you heard me right, a murderer gets the most incredible revenge put on them by an innocent neighbor of theirs who they happen to be annoying 20 years after the murder occurred. This story gets crazier and crazier as it goes on, guys, so sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. But before we get into that, guys, first of all, if you haven't done so already, go and subscribe to my gaming channel, Redditor Plays. We've got about 8,000 subscribers there. Let's try and get to 10k. I'm posting videos on Minecraft, Among Us, even a little bit of Warzone. If you're a fan of those games and you're a fan of me, go and check it out. It's linked behind the I button and in the description right now. Neighbor likes to park in front of my house. Okay then. My neighbor started parking on the street behind my car, like literally inches, for no apparent reason. My neighbor has a driveway which is empty and also lived 2 houses down the street. I don't have a driveway, so on-street parking is a must for me. So after a few weeks, I asked him if it was necessary to park so close when there was literally no cars on the street for over a quarter mile. He said, no, but there's no law against it, with a big poop-eating grin on his face. A few weeks pass by and my car gets hit because someone thought there was enough room to clear as his truck blocked the view of my car entirely. I see this happen, but unfortunately I can't get a model or license plate number. I find my neighbor's email address because I really didn't feel like talking to him and asked him again if he could just park further down the road, closer to his house. He replied, nope, suck on it. Okay. I'd lived here for quite a long time and never had any issues with him or any other neighbor. I keep to myself, I never make noise, I don't have any noisy pets or parties, etc. His truck though has his business name on it. I Google it. I found out it's his own business. Lots of Yelp reviews, BBB rating, etc. All these links point to his website. I go to check his website, it doesn't load up. I head over to Whois and see that the domain isn't registered. So, I snag it. Before I think of what to do with it, I Google the owner's name and find out he's been convicted of murdering a child 20-ish years ago. I find a handful of links that details his story rather explicitly. So, I copy-paste all those links into an email to him, a throwaway account so he can't just reply to me as I deleted it afterwards. I said something like, well, if you want to be a jerk for no reason, I just bought your business domain. Here's all the links I plan on posting on it. I don't have to list your business name because all of your business listings across the internet have this URL pointing to it. Keep parking like a jerk. Yes, it's legal, but you are willfully doing this just to annoy me. I legally bought your domain and can legally link these articles. Park behind me again and I'll launch it. Within an hour, his truck was moved into his driveway. He asked me for the domain, and I told him when either you move or I move, I'll hand it over. Until then, it'll remain offline. Well, as dumb as this guy is for having an internet domain on the back of his van and then not actually owning that domain, I've got to say, OP, you're a genius to even think about that. You know, going on the website to find who he really was is one thing. Then seeing it doesn't exist and copying it and being like, you know what, mate, if you don't do what I'm about to say, if you don't move your car, your business is done. That is genius. First of all, he deserves it. He murdered a child 20 years ago. That is mad. Why is he not in prison? I guess 20 years is a long time and maybe it was manslaughter. So he might have been out in, 15 or something like that, depending on the laws in this country. With good behavior, could be out in a few. But still, for murdering a child, I mean, if he meant it, then he deserves the worst karma possible. If he didn't and it was an accident, which I suppose it would be, then maybe okay, I can, understand it a little bit more. But still, murdering a child, you deserve, to be honest, much worse revenge than what happened in this video. Everyone deserves to know about this. Think about it. If you're going to some businessman, right, and you're like, oh, he seems like a nice guy, then you find out he's murdered a child. You're not going to want to do business with him, are you? That sort of the stuff should just tarnish you for the rest of your life. That's crazy. The more I speak about it, the more I'm clocking. He murdered a kid. Mad. Now moving on to our second story. Relatives lose everything because they were too stupid to keep their mouths shut. A bit of context here. I work as a lawyer for an excellent and famous law firm here in northern Italy. My family went through some tough times though. In the last 9 years, we had to face a brutal divorce with my dad having depleted every single cent he could. One of my aunts was brutally murdered because of a €150 cautionary deposit. My granddad was diagnosed with cancer, and there was some other funny stuff in the middle. Because of that, our bonds became stronger and stronger. I must say that with my family, I mean my mother, her parents, and my 2 aunts. Now this year, COVID-19 managed to take away both my aunts. I love them to the moon and back, but one of them was married to a complete douchebag. He always considered himself to be better and smarter than everyone else, and so were his relatives. My aunt and her husband, I straight up refuse to call him an uncle, lived in a huge house, and so did his brother with her wife and son. He died around 7 to 8 years ago and left almost everything he could just to his brother and his family, completely ignoring my family because OP's granddad is already rich. Why should I leave anything to his daughter and grandson, basically? This year, my aunt was taken by COVID. I was grieving since I really loved her and cared about her, and I already lost another aunt prior. When the notary called us to read the will, both me and my mother came out completely astonished. She left us just a few things, even though she always said she would have left us basically everything. I don't need the money involved that much, as I already inherited from my other aunts, and my job pays me really well. But my mum always had to struggle, financially speaking. It would have been a huge help, since she doesn't want anything from me. I tried to give her some money in the past, but she always sent it back, being as stubborn as she can be. As we walked out, I pulled my cousin by my side to ask him just one thing. Hey, cousin, listen, I know it's a dumb question, but when I last saw her, I brought my aunt a little ceramic bell shaped as a lady. She held it to her chest all the time. I'd like to have it back. It would be a memory of her. He started smiling at me as if I was the most stupid person on earth. Yeah, sure, whatever. I don't know what I could do with that stupid bell, so take it. But don't expect us to give you anything more. We had to sweat bullets for this will to work. I'm sorry, what do you mean? I questioned. He realised at that point he screwed up, so he just left. My mum went back home. I headed back to my office to take a closer look on my aunt's will. It was bulletproof, and the handwriting was, without any doubts, my aunt's. So what the heck did he mean? It took me several weeks to finally get the clue. As previously mentioned by my husband was written in the will. It was just this small phrase. My aunt's husband, though, died 7 years before. How the heck could he mention anything? Since zombies are still nowhere to be seen, and I don't know of any deceased person talking from his grave, I started to scan the whole will once again. Things I never noticed before became as clear as the sun. 1, there were missing pages. My aunt numbered them, but the 2nd and 4th pages were missing, with sentences left hanging there. 2, some of the corrections were legit, but looking closely, there were a few of them where the uncertain hand of an 81-year-old lady suddenly became stronger and more precise. And 3, my aunt's husband was mentioned every time my aunt was talking about money and valuables. He did say something about the savings, but apparently his ties that were to be given to charity didn't need his approval. Strange, huh? When I talked to my mum and her parents about this, my granddad, who is 74 and still has more strength and lucidity than your average 40-year-old dude, mentioned my aunt's husband's will. We don't know what he said. His family never let us even take a look at it, and it wasn't worth it to sue them. I went back to the notary the next day, asking to see the will since I was a relative. The guy let me, but asked what was going on. I simply said, "You'll know soon enough." When I read it, I started laughing so hard that even the secretary came to see what the F was going on. I rushed back to my office and started to write everything down. Poop was about to hit the fan, but not for my family. After a few days, me, my mum, her parents, and my aunt's relatives met once again in front of the notary. I already told him what was happening. I could see him trying not to look disgusted as my aunt's husband's beloved ones walked in. The notary said, "We are all here. Apparently, OP has some things to discuss with us concerning inheritances." You could hear a pin drop a mile away. I stood up and opened my bag. My family was smiling. My relatives were staring daggers from their eyes. I say, as we all know, Auntie left everything to you. Nothing is wrong here, as she didn't have any direct relationship with anyone in this room. What is wrong is the reason behind it. I handed a copy of the will to everyone, with some parts being highlighted. As you can see, pages are missing. Some corrections are different to say the least, but most importantly, my uncle is cited quite often. This led me to his will. At this point, my relatives turned whiter than snow. My cousin tried to stop me, telling me I couldn't possibly use my uncle's will as more than 5 years had passed. The notary, though, told him that I totally could, as the allowance to contest the will is 10 years. He kept silence. He left to my aunt everything he had if she would have left it to you as she died. You see, in our state, it's not legal to make such a kind of contract. So, I want to let you know that you just lost all your rights on my uncle's will, and you are all to be sued for false declaration in public deed and attempted fraud. They started screeching and screaming, calling me names and wishing me an obviously pleasant and late death. All because one of them wasn't clever enough to shut their mouth. Now they'd lost everything they had, since their farm, their money, their house, and their cars were all my uncle's. They had been forced to leave the house they were living in, all their bank accounts had been blocked, and even their farm had to be closed since it was also my uncle's previous activity. Since the corrections they made were actually very precise, and some items, jewelry, ingots, cash, are now mysteriously missing, they even have to pay for an equal value. They had a little empire, but managed to lose everything over greed and stupidity. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen to me. If you want to screw with someone, at least have the courtesy of not doing it with a lawyer. Well, today I learned that notaries in Italy are very powerful people. Yeah, guys, don't worry if you didn't keep track of everything going on there. I'm just going to quickly reread it and then just recount the most important things so we're all on the same page. I think the main point of this is that the uncle's will, who died many years ago, was actually illegal. You can't make those sort of contractual obligements in Italy. So for that reason, everything that the other half of your family, you know, your cousins and your uncle, I guess you don't like calling your uncle, actually got, was not legal. So their entire empire, the farms, the cars, everything that you said there wasn't actually legally theirs. And when you found out about that due to your aunt's will, going ahead, you were like, hang on a second. This doesn't really count. So all the stuff that your uncle gave to you, which your aunt also owned, of course, they are together, is actually not even theirs anymore. So I'm pretty sure they were trying to be greedy to try and get everything that the aunt owed, as well as the uncle years before. And in reality, they should have just stuck to what they got from the uncle, because that sounded like, a small empire. But going for the aunt as well, that's a bit overkill. It's not going to work with OP, and well done to OP and your family for, doing the right thing and getting what you deserve. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/ProRevenge. I really hope you have enjoyed it. A couple of mental stories in there. The first blew my mind, I'm not going to lie. I didn't even know that people like that would be out of prison within 20 years, to be honest. If anything, OP's revenge, after she found out that you were a child murderer, should have been way more, to be honest. But I guess, you've gone through the criminal system already and it's decided that it spat you out after a certain number of years. Who knows? I'd love to know more. If you want more right away from r/ProRevenge, check all the stuff on screen and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, because I post videos daily and twice a day in December. So yeah, stick around.